Hi, this is Franklin Allaire, State Director for the Hawaii State Science Olympiad, and welcome to part one of our presentation regarding Coaching 101. So you've decided, or you've been volunteered, to have a Science Olympiad team at your school. And you're probably thinking right about now what? What do I do? How do I get things going? Well, that's the whole point of this presentation. We're going to talk a little bit about the nuts and bolts of putting together a team and some of the basics that you need to know to get your Science Olympiad program going at your school. So let's start with some of the basics. Your team is going to be up to 15 students plus a couple of alternates. That is the maximum number of students that any Science Olympiad team, no matter what kind of school it comes from, public, private, charter, or homeschool, that's the maximum size that it can be. Again, up to 15 students plus a couple of alternates. Now, HSSO does have a policy where your school can have up to 2 teams per division. So if you get a lot of interest from your students, it is a possibility to put together more than 1 team. But let's just focus on 1 team. Now, if you're a Division C school, that means your high school, you can have a maximum of 7 12th graders on your team. A lot of coaches think that it's really great to pack your team full of 12th graders because they have the most education, they know the most, or at least they think they know the most. Well, so we put a cap on that. So your team can have up to 7 12th graders. Now, if you're a Division B team, you can have up to 5 9th graders. You'll notice in Division B goes from 6th to 9th grade. So that means that, yes, you can have 9th graders on your team. Now, I realize that most 9th graders will go on to high school, so that means you can actually pull 9th graders down from the high school to participate on a middle school team. But again, we limit you to 5 of those 9th graders on your Division B team. Now, even though you can have up to 15 students plus a couple of alternates on your team, there is nothing saying that you can't get things started at your school with just 2, 3, or 4 students. Try it out for the first year. In a lot of cases, the first year is going to be the hardest, and so if you focus on maybe a handful of really good students, they're going to have a really good time. They're going to each tell a friend of theirs, and next year you're going to go from 5 students to 20 students. It's amazing what can happen. Now, once you get your team together, you need to register. And you can register to participate in any one of our regional tournaments. Our tournaments are open to all schools, which means that any school from any island can participate in any regional tournament. To register, you need to go online to www.hsso.org. There's a one-time registration fee of $100. And this covers you for all Science Olympiad tournaments, whether you go just to the regional level or also qualify for the state level or the national level. We will never ask you for any other money for Science Olympiad again. What this $100 gets you, among other things, is a copy of the rules manual. Now, the rules manuals are going to have everything that you need to know to prepare for a Science Olympiad tournament. It has all of the information for all of the events in black and white spelled out very clearly. What is the event about? What are the parameters for the event? How is the event going to be scored? What kind of topics are going to be covered for the event? Where are some places that I can go to get information about this particular event? All of that is in the rules manual. So paying your $100 registration fee gets you a copy of the rules manual. It also gets you a 1-year membership to the Hawaii Science Teachers Association. One of the concerns we've gotten from teachers in the past is they want ways to communicate with teachers all around the state of Hawaii. Hawaii Science Teachers Association is a great way to do that, so we're partnering with them this year. Now, once you get registered, you're probably thinking, where do you begin? How do you generate student interest? I'm a classroom teacher, so one of the best ways that I've found to generate student interest is simply by talking to students that I have in my classes. I put announcements up on the board, I talk about it in class, I kind of cherry pick some students. You know, if I see that maybe they would be interested in this, I kind of, poke and prod and I tap them to see if they would be interested in participating. You can put a general announcement out in your school's bulletin, and you may want to think about having a tryout process. And of course, this depends on how many students you get that first year. Again, you can have up to 15, but there's nothing saying you can't run a team with just 2 students. In fact, that might be a really great way for your team to get going. You want to make sure that you advertise that your team's open to all grade levels. If it's a middle school, that means ninth, 6th, 7th, 8th, and ninth grade. If you're at a high school, that's 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. And of course, you want to cover all or as many of the events as possible. And that's one of the other neat things about Science Olympiad. You can participate in as much or as little of it as you want. One thing to think about, though, is student time commitment. This will get into the philosophy of your team. How often do you want to have practices? Several times a week, once a week, every day, a couple of times a month. It's really up to you, but you need to make it very clear to your students that there is a time commitment. And you also need to understand that one size does not fit all. Students are coming in as an individual, so at the beginning you may want to take some time to build that team atmosphere, do some team building activities, have the kids having some fun with each other, just to get to know each other and you. Now, as far as eligibility, that's really up to you. You can take a look at the national website, that's www.soinc.org. You should also take a look at your school's extracurricular eligibility policy. Is there a certain GPA students have to have? Is there a GPA that you are going to require your students to have? Now, some schools will charge a participation fee. That's completely up to you. You also may want to talk about other activities restrictions. At my school, one of the big challenges is competing with things like marching band and orchestra. So you need to think about other activities students are going to participate in. Sometimes we have had students sign a contract, and we have had policies in place that if they miss a certain number of practices, then they are either on probation or they're off the team. Some other forms to think about, of course, are medical forms, and for anybody traveling, whether that's neighbor island traveling to Oahu, or if you qualify for the national tournament and you travel to the continental US, you need to think about travel permission forms as well. Now, there are a bunch of events. In the rules manual, they have all 23. At our statewide tournament, we will be running 15 events in each division. At the regional level, we will be running about 8 or 9 events in each of the divisions. So one of the challenges is figuring out how to take 15 students and fit them into these different events. For the most part, the events have 2 students per event. There are some exceptions, like experimental design allows for 3. So some things to take into consideration when placing students in events is, of course, student preferences. If you have a student and you know that they want to be a doctor, anatomy and physiology is probably a pretty good place for them to be. All students love to build stuff, they love to do hands-on stuff, but of course we want to spread that out. So one of the rules that we have in place is that if you do a building event, you also have to do what's called a cerebral event, and that is maybe something that's a little bit more of a test-taking event. You also want to think about grade levels. And on our team, one of the things that we try to do is we try to mix an upperclassman with maybe a freshman or a sophomore. So that way, not only do you get peer-to-peer relationships going, you also get some mentoring, and you're also training for the future. It's very, very tempting to take students that have lots, or that they think they have lots of academic knowledge, and put them into these events that require a lot of knowledge. But you also want to think about the future of your team. So sometimes spreading the wealth is a better policy than trying to pack your team full of people that think they know what's going on. Now, when it comes to being a coach, are you one coach or 23 coaches? Meaning, is it just you, or do you have other people helping you out? Or are you 23 coaches all in one coach? Really, you're not going to know everything. You can't know everything, and you can't do everything. So find some help as quickly as possible. Ask some other people in your department to help you out, and there's nothing wrong with going after parents. Parents seem to be perfectly fine with dropping off their kids and picking them up later. I don't see any problem with going after those parents and asking them to help out. If you know that you have a kid on your team and their parents are doctors or nurses or pediatricians or veterinarians, get them to help with an anatomy or anatomy and physiology event. If you know a student has a parent and they love to build things, they have a workshop at their house, get them to help you with the building events. There is nothing wrong with asking them. Although you do want to make the expectations for those coaches very clear, that if they are committing to helping the team, that they should be helping the team and not flaking out on you. So you want to share with them some of the responsibilities, and you also want to think about liability. If it's all well and good if everything is happening at the school, but if students are going to be going to another student's house to work, you want to talk to that parent, you want to talk to that coach about the liability of having those students working at their houses. There's nothing wrong with it, but just make sure that they're aware of the liability involved with it. Now, as a final thought, you need to think about the philosophy of your team. And this is what we like to call the win, place, show philosophy. What's the point of you having a Science Olympiad team? If it's to win a tournament, that's fine. If it's to show up and just have students participate, that's fine too. If it's to place in some events or maybe place overall, that's fine. But this philosophy, whether it's going to be win, place, or show, is really going to determine how you set up your team. Are you going to be hands-off and let the students prep on their own? Maybe that's just showing up and having the kids participate. Maybe you're going to have some practices once a month or a couple of times a month so that you can just place in a couple events and make a really good showing. That's fine. Maybe you want to have practices every day or several times a week, or for sure at least once a week, because your goal is to win in particular events or to win overall. There's nothing wrong with any of these philosophies, and one is not any better than the other. It just depends on the coaches and the students, and that's really what's going to guide you and your team as you practice for a regional, state, or national tournament. Now, last but certainly not least, in all of our presentations, we encourage you to get connected, and there's lots of resources out there online. You can go to our state website, hsso.org, for information pertaining to Hawaii. You can go to the national website, which is soinc.org, and that's everything in the National Science Olympiad program. I do encourage you and your students to go to scioli.org. That is a bulletin board website where people can comment and ask questions about various events. You can email us anytime at hisciolympiad@gmail.com. And of course, we are also on Facebook, so we do want to encourage you to like us, and you can do that by going to facebook.com/hisciolympiad. Well, until next time, when I see you in part 2, aloha.